Well, President Ramaphosa has called on South Africans to use their vote as a form of protest and remove those who are not delivering in leading them. He said this earlier today when he was addressing the country to commemorate 27 years of democracy. That was in Botshabelo in the Free State. But young people in South Africa have a history of staying away from the polls during elections. The recent Fees Must Fall protest also highlighted the struggle to access education for many young people. Well, let's get a young person's view at this hour. Bongani Mbelekana, a postgraduate student at the University of Cape Town who held different leadership roles while studying at the University of the Western Cape, to share his views on this Freedom Day. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for your time. Thanks for joining us, Bongani. Happy Freedom Day to you. Just in a nutshell for you today, when you hear Freedom Day 27 years later on, what stands out for you? What's the main thing that you are thinking about on such a day?
Thank you so much for having me on the studio. To me, freedom, it's a myth to us, especially we as black people. We just hear about freedom, we just hear about liberation, we are not experiencing, it's not something that we live. So even today, you can see each and every year, we as black poor students, we keep on fighting in this higher institution of learning for access to education. It has been 27 years of being excluded even to the economy. When you go to the South African economy, you'll see that more than 90% of the people are white people. And we as black people, we have no part in a society that it's deemed to be a rainbow nation that does not exist when it comes to an African perspective and black experience. I'll make an example where I am now in UCT. We've been fighting at the beginning of the year for accessing education because we're being told to pay fees. It is very dehumanizing for us as black children to keep on explaining as to why we are poor, why we cannot afford fees, because these are the same students that were told and were promised in 1994 that they are going to get free education. And taking into account where we're coming from the informal settlement, we're coming from Manenberg, we're coming from Guguletu, we're coming from Kailicha, whereby each and every day a black child is dying, whereby each and every day you hear cases of gender-based violence, whereby every day a black child has to explain their sexuality as to why they are living this way. It is an anti-black society that we live in as black young people.
So this freedom that we talk about today, 27 years later since 1994, from your answer right now, touching on so many things, for you it is empty.
It is indeed empty because I do not experience this. I do not feel freedom. For example, now, every day we go to bed as many students because we do not have access to food due to austerity measures that were introduced by the state, cutting the budget of NSFAS, cutting the budget in health sector, knowing that most of these people and the dependence of, they are depending to the state apparatus. When you are cutting all these budget to the health sector, you are saying black people must stay poor, you are saying black people must die into townships, black people must remain at the bottom of all sectors of life, because there's no sector that you can say that African people, they are dominating, or at least there's access for them.
So what should change for you to deal with all those things you've mentioned? What should happen to make this freedom meaningful?
Coming to your point, as we said, that to each and every country we have seen the revolution. There is no formula or sequence, including any fixed way of fighting for total liberation, because without economic emancipation, there is no liberation. By saying that, I'm saying we as poor people now, it is upon us to see as to what is the way forward that will liberate us, taking into account the stance of the ruling party that has to leave. They have to vacate, because even if our people can keep on voting for the same organization, but they do the same thing, and black people, they are still dispossessed even today.
So you agree with the sentiment expressed today by President Ramaphosa that people must go and vote later this year in the local government elections, use their power. He says voting is a potent weapon. They have to protest against the lack of service delivery, for example.
I would not agree with the president, because what are they doing is that the president, they will focus on, they know that most of people who are going to vote, it is the people from rural areas, and those people, they depend on social grants. So that is why the president, they keep on saying they have to go to vote, because they have to depend on the state. If we vote for the African National Congress, we'll get these social grants. So the president does not speak in a broader scale as to what happens, why we've been voting for years, but nothing, there's no change even now.
So as a young person today, Bongani, and you seem to be very disillusioned and disappointed about the nature of the freedom which you've described as empty, and you're still saying that you're finding yourself at the bottom of all sectors of South Africa. How would you change the future?
Our future currently, I cannot say it's bleak, but it is there. That's the pathway, taking into account the depth of the country, because it is affecting us as the generation, and also in the future generation. Having a country that has so much debt, and in IMF and the World Bank, we cannot see the future, cannot direct the future currently, especially having this current leadership that is in power. Our future is still uncertain as young people and the generation that will come after us.
Are you going to vote in October?
Definitely we are going to vote, but we are saying voting, it's by the way. Because if voting does not work, we as young people, we must do whatever it takes, whatever necessary to make sure that we do get emancipation. Otherwise, this country won't be here for our children and those who will come after us.
Yeah. So is there anything in this 27 years that you could point to and say, yeah, at least there's a bit of a progress there? Because since we started talking, it is not sounding good from your perspective. Things are not great.
Yeah, I can say that at least black people, they are being accepted to this neo rainbow nation South Africa, because now we are able to breathe, we are able to go to Falls Bay, we are able to go to the oceans we are being so-called inclusivity, if I can put it that way. At least black people now, they are able to breathe. Because the thing, we can never say that there's freedom when there is inaccessibility to those freedom. It's like saying that you are giving me a right to education, but you do not give me the means to access that particular right. So that's where we are currently.
So there's political freedom, but it's not complete because there's no economic emancipation to equalize society, in your view. That's basically what you are saying.
Indeed, there is political freedom that is driving the narrative, but there is no economic freedom for us as black people, especially, to be specific, the African people. We are finding ourselves as dejected people who are at the periphery of all sectors of life in this country.
Are you angry?
No, I'm not angry. I'm just articulating factuality.
Yeah, but that fact, as you look at it as a young person, after 27 years, how does it make you feel? Angry, disappointed, disillusioned? What word would you use to describe this state you find yourself in as you look at the country on this Freedom Day?
You know, it makes me feel worried. It makes me feel sad and angry at the same time to our leaders. Because during CODESA, we thought at least something will take place after 1994. But till today, the only thing that is happening is the agreement of what Frantz Fanon is saying, of the comprador bourgeoisies who negate their own people after being in a post-apartheid state. That's where we are currently as African people, especially young person. Every day when I go out, I see a black graduate who's poor standing on those streets. That itself is giving us, it's limiting our hope of having a better state in future, because we get these degrees and then they are non-existent at the end of the day because the economy can't absorb us.
Without putting words in your mouth, you are saying that the current leaders since 1994 have failed.
Yes, that's what is happening. Since 1994, the current African National Congress-led government has failed us since 1994. And then now it's been 27 years. After this, we'll be told the same thing. They are speaking about infrastructure each and every year. When come voting, I've been told about infrastructure for economics, for boosting the economy. We can't see that as black people. Even if you say today the rand is strong, we do not feel it in the township because the price of bread is still 18 rand. There is no difference. I still go to my house whereby I have to find money for electricity.
You and your colleagues, Bongani, when you talk about what you've just expressed, what kind of ideas are you sharing today, 27 years on, about how things can be changed and for the better? What kind of ideas, just very briefly, are you guys sharing?
We and our colleagues and majority of black people and young people around the country, it's the only thing we need now is to organize, because we've been crying to the state, we've been writing petition, we've been signing that there's nothing that we haven't done, we've been trying every way, every diplomatic way to be heard, our voices to be heard, but there is no solution at all to our problems. We are just being negated. But this is where we are now, to keep on consulting with young people who are being affected. From that consultation, it is where black people, especially poor young people, they will find a way forward as to what to do, because our belief is that we can never just come to them and say, here is a way forward. They have to think for them what will best describe their freedom and how to attain that particular liberation or emancipation.
Yeah, the sense I'm getting is the governing party has failed. There's so many challenges. There is political freedom, but there's no economic emancipation. So are you going to be doing stuff for yourselves to lift yourselves up instead of waiting for somebody else like government to do it because they're not doing it?
Yes, we've been doing, since the inception, we've been trying for survival, we've been doing things for ourselves. That's why we're trying to be here in these higher institutions of learning, finding all these challenges, fighting for ourselves. There's no one to defend us, but we've been surviving, we've been doing things ourselves. And also the degrees that we have, we keep on to assist those who do not have, to go on and tutoring other black children so that at least they can come, they can get out of the jungle, because township is the jungle itself for survival. When we are congested, people keep on fighting. So we use those limited means we have to educate others to come and join us to these so-called education spaces. We'll see from there where it will take us. As long as we are educated, we can find solution to our problems.
Finally, Bongani, are you hopeful about the future? If you look ahead to the next 27 years, you want to see South Africa in a different place. Are you hopeful?
Let me say that I'm disappointed, but I do not throw hope. I do not leave hope behind. Without hope, there is no means for you to keep on fighting. Hope will always be there. But the only hope we have is to one day to have an egalitarian South Africa, whereby we will also be regarded as human beings who are part of the economy, human beings who are no longer dispossessed, who are having a dignity. Because without dignity, that is taking away our self-esteem everywhere you go as a black child.
Bongani, thank you very much. Bongani Mbelekana, postgraduate student at the University of Cape Town, sharing some of his views as a young person and bringing through about what some of his colleagues are also saying. Bongani Mbelekana on this Freedom Day here on the Midday View.